Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for your patience. Talk is now on the screen, being repaired. Today I'm going to tell you a bit about VitaDAO. It's a new type of entity that's literally just come up over the past few years, something which is actually accelerated by the lockdown, COVID pandemic actually, and bringing innovations and accelerating scientific discovery online in a globally distributed, community-owned way. So, the title of my speech is A New Epoch in Funding Aging Research and Accelerating Scientific Breakthroughs with DeSci, which is short for Decentralized Science. So the question I'd like to leave with you all today is how can we collectively rethink the model in which scientific research is resourced and accelerated, and to open up a new collaborative way of financing rejuvenation. So the problem with centralized, There we go. The problem with centralized science. So first off, I'm going to speak a bit about Eroom's law. So for those of you who aren't familiar, that's Moore's law spelled backwards. It's coined by Dr. Jack Scannell, who's actually now part of the DeSci ecosystem. It's great how these things work. It's the observation that drug discovery is becoming slower, more expensive over time despite improvements in technology, for instance, high-throughput screening, computational drug design, ChatGPT, large language models. And specifically, it speaks to how and why the inflation-adjusted cost of developing a new drug is roughly doubling every 9 years. So a quick stat is in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, the FDA approved just 53 new drugs. And in the same year, the global pharma industry spent nearly $200 billion in drug R&D costs. And the average cost per drug that year, which was approved, was $3.8 billion. And really, this is a big contributor to the great stagnation that we're seeing. For those of you who are familiar with Tyler Cohen and progress studies, and the result is basically a push to look towards other solutions to stay innovative. And it's largely driven by the younger generation now. So the future of researchers, of finances for aging research. So as we know, progress is bottlenecked largely by systemic and institutional level issues, such as, for instance, university tech transfer offices, the lack of forward-facing, innovative, commercial outlook. And there's an increasing regulatory burden, a lack of open source sharing of technologies, and misallocation of capital that's prevented new drugs from reaching the market and therefore patients. And historically, fundamental technological shifts have required new structures for collaboration, yet decades into the internet age, we still grapple with archaic institutions for governing and sharing value. So, decentralized science is a potential solution. So what is DeSci? Right. The definition is it's a movement that aims to build public infrastructure for funding, creating, reviewing, crediting and storing and disseminating scientific knowledge fairly and equitably using Web3 stack. So first off, what is Web3? Web3 is a term that is used to describe the maturation of crypto and blockchain technology. And what it does is it hopes to create an environment where new and unconventional ideas, moonshots, can flourish by opening up access to funding, scientific tools, and communication channels. And so far, we have established we're looking to establish a faster, open source, and more democratized incentive system and collaboration through a token-based mechanism. So, this is a snapshot of the decentralized science landscape. And what it does is it doesn't just cover funding, which is what VitaDAO does, which I'll speak about in a moment. But you're seeing organizations pop up from all the different parts of the scientific research, funding, ecosystem, basically. And actually, this is something which, so I mean, VitaDAO initially arrived in 2021, but it only really kicked off last year in February 2022 at ETH Denver, which is a crypto conference. But since then, we've seen almost a Cambrian explosion of these internet native organizations. So we're seeing organizations that are funding, advancing women's health research. That's VitaDAO. Also for cryopreservation, cryotherapy, that's CryoDAO. We're also seeing organizations in publishing, so that's DeSci Labs. So, and it's growing, and it's not just in science either. It's also in wireless, in energy, and also space. So it's a really interesting and emerging frontier. So a bit about VitaDAO. So first off, what is a DAO? What is a DAO? It's a decentralized autonomous organization. But what that really means is that it's an emerging legal structure. And it's a collective of people who come together for a shared mission. They don't necessarily, come together in order to be remunerated, to be compensated. It's a lot of the time it's actually voluntary and just very interested, mission-aligned, frustrated by the system that they're confronted with. And so yeah, it's a group of people who have and act in a common goal and mission. And how it's different is that it's governed from the bottom up, so from the community up. So the community makes the decisions, whereas in a traditional company, decisions are made top down from C-level. So we're basically an umbrella servant leader organization in which everyone in longevity can function. So there are a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of people who are excited about longevity, aging research, biohacking, like you name it, education, prevention, and they just don't really know where to start. As there's so many different ways that you could possibly go in. Like, do I need a PhD? Do I need to have gone to this university? I'm in Uruguay. I don't have access to the materials that I need in order to pursue my interests. So really what we're doing is we're uniting the next generation of aging researchers and therefore potentially breakthrough technologies, breakthrough therapeutics via this community-owned online collective. So there's low barriers to entry, the focus on community, and we're coordinating everyone together to get excited about longevity and to advance the field. So we've only been around for 2021, but what have we actually done? So far we have funded 19 plus projects with 4 million. 20 projects we have conducted under review, so that's senior review. 200 plus projects evaluated. Community is 9,000 and growing. I believe the stat at the moment is 9,228. Ticket sizes are quite small, but we prefer to say that we provide the value-added capital by having the community. So it's not just enthusiasts, it's biotech operators, it's entrepreneurial MDs, professors, investors, founders who are on their third exit, key opinion leaders in longevity. And our treasury is 6 million in size. So we're the first money in with the highest upside potential. So we kind of come even before Apollo. So a percentage of our treasury goes, a percentage of our treasury goes towards startups, so pre-seed to seed stage. We previously funded Turn Bio, Etheros, AcceptGen most recently. And the other percentage of our treasury goes towards projects that are still in the laboratory. So maybe it's the valley of death stage of breakthrough, really. So scientists' projects that are going through their last 2-3 experiments. So we advance research so that a company can be built with the extensive community of scientists, builders, and partnerships. So I'm going to double tap on the IP section now, and how it's different. So we're a community of 9,000 people. Well, yeah. We're split into 3 working groups. The first is community and awareness, so that's the virality side, that's the TikToks, that's the Twitter threads, that's getting engagement and excitement from the younger generation, from the older generation, bringing everyone together for the same cause. There's the operations, which is the cornerstone of any well-functioning organization, and then there's the deal flow working group. So I lead deal flow and company building at VitaDAO. And what we are is a pre-vetted group of people who collectively source and diligence assets. So we're leveraging the collective wisdom of the working group in order to get the best deal flow, the evaluation, due diligence, to incubate ideas and improve towards commercialization, and to make funding recommendations to the community. So our focus is basically in the 88% remaining preclinical assets that reside in the translational stage in the Valley of Death. And so how does this work? Well, project teams are formulated around deals. It kind of operates in the Amazon 2-pizza model, if anyone's familiar with that. So there are roughly 3 or 4 people, enough to feed with 2 pizzas. And this is kind of how subject matter experts kind of come to the deal, evaluate, incubate, and then have a senior review. So senior reviewers range from, so Pfizer, we're also backed by Pfizer during our latest fundraise, Novartis, ex-NIH, the list goes on for senior reviewers. And then we make a recommendation to the community. So it kind of works like an investment memo, like a one-pager, and the community can decide whether or not to make the funding decision, and that is done via a token. So that's the Web3 blockchain aspect that comes into it. And it's basically 1 token, 1 vote, and it's called Vita. So that's the Web3 side. And then the decision is made on an application called Snapshot, so it's on-chain, and it's therefore visible, it's public, it's open, and it's almost like a promise that you therefore have to fulfill. It was decided by the community, whereas these sorts of things are kind of sometimes get lost in the weeds in a typical organization. So we use IP, digital assets, and decentralized marketplaces for the spin-outs. And how this is different is that basically we create a replica of the IP license, bring it on-chain, so it's a digital asset or an IP-NFT. And it therefore means that you can raise non-dilutive proceeds as you would with a typical grant, but via decentralized finance or cryptocurrency. Sure, this is higher risk, higher volatility capital. However, it's a lot quicker, and we work with a legal team in order to make sure that it's compliant, and so far it's working. So, next slide, just a little bit more about the IP-NFT structure. So what it really does is it de-risks translational R&D projects, and IP tokens are distributed to researchers and universities, allowing them to retain influence. So people have skin in the game, whereas traditionally it's not always looking that way. And so IP tokens can be sold in order to generate more proceeds from investors. It can be used as bounties for contractors, say bioinformaticians or crystallographer. Of course, fiat, normal currency, is also an option, but this is another way in order to be more capital efficient. And eventually, we may even see a decentralized marketplace of IP tokens for different projects amongst longevity, aging research. And by owning a part of that IP token, it therefore fosters a more collaborative, more supportive environment where everyone has each other's best interests, and a more openness, which is what the open science movement really dictates, and also what decentralized science kind of caveats. So this is a portfolio snapshot of what we've funded to date. So as you can see, there's a mixture of startups and of academic projects. So yeah, TurnBio, Rubedo, Coralchuk. That's with Newcastle University. That was the most recent IP-NFT fractionalization. It was actually 1,700% oversubscribed. And Matrix Bio with Dr. Vera Gorbanova. Hi. So just to close this off then, the advantages of VitaDAO. So superior mechanics. We are the largest researcher-led deal flow team in the industry. We also, our interest is collaboration, so not competition. So we are looking for that big pharma buyout eventually, and we have the mechanisms in place as well with the IP-NFT in case anyone's interested with the buyout clause. I know that's also something that's top of mind. So our incubator model leverages the highest ROI, early stage R&D, and mitigates risk through portfolio diversity. And we'll also leverage leveling up with industry leaders. So as I mentioned earlier, we're backed by Pfizer. In our scientific advisory board, we have the likes of Novartis, Pfizer, and it's growing. And we're also coming into deals at the same stage as these guys. And we also have a synthesis between the crypto community and the longevity biotech community. And why it's exciting to involve the crypto community is the youth, the accessibility to community, the ability to communicate in a way that brings everyone to the table, that gets everyone excited. And the Vita tokens, so everyone has skin in the game. Those who own the Vita tokens can vote. They can, you can also enter the community. We're on a Discord. If anyone doesn't know what Discord is, it's kind of similar to Slack. And yeah, you can join in. You can contribute. It's actually really quite easy. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. And if you'd like to get in touch, here's my contact. But thanks.
Great job. Thanks, Alan. Don't go away yet. There might be a question. Yep, one question over there.
Thank you for your speech. To be honest, I don't understand everything, but I saw that there are 5 principles for DeSci, and 2 are extremely interesting for me. So transparency at all stages, and open source publishing. But I do not understand. I absolutely do not understand how you can combine that with all IP aspects.
Sure.
And yeah, to be honest, that's my big problem. My big problem with all this beautiful, supposed to be organization where the principle is open source, but you don't see information.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting question. And so, as far as the open source publishing is concerned, this is something which is more related to another organization called DeSci Labs. As far as the funding and company building is concerned, that's more VitaDAO. And so they're 2 separate organizations, but we foster the same principle and work in collaboration. Also happy to talk about it person to person off the stage as well, if that's...
No. But my question is about transparency, so if you can... once again, I don't understand. You said there are 5 principles and 2 principles, transparency and open source, open access publication, and then you speak about financing with IP and so on. So I don't understand. I don't understand. So if it is financing IP, having IP, you cannot have at the same time open access and transparency for everything, I think.
Sure. So how it works is that the IP itself, the data, is kept encrypted. That's not something which is open source. It's the representation of that IP. So the license, the sponsored research agreement, for instance, which confirms the validity, say, of the IP. So that's basically how it works, if that answers your question.
And yeah, this is really hard to understand. I mean, like, yeah, I congratulate Eleanor for having the courage to try to explain all of this to people like us. Anyway, so we've got to move on to the next talk, the last talk of this session. Tobias Reichmuth, where is he? Tobias?